Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with Living in Serenity. Living in Serenity is a where we talk about how to achieve serenity based on the book Perante Jesus, Before Jesus, by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. This book was psychographed in 1989 to 1990 and published in Brazil, and finally, after 30 years, coming to life here at Kardec Radio. The book is under translation, and we have here the opportunity to share with you the blessings of having this book in the current times. Yes, you know by now that the coronavirus is a pandemic and we all need to take measures. But simply washing our hands, is that enough? Before washing our hands, we need to wash our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And this lesson today in chapter 9 is a perfect fit for the current times. It talks about reconciliation. The times are coming to really ask us to focus on the priorities of life. What is the priority of our lives? Do you know? We need to focus on that and much more. We need to recalibrate ourselves. This is the time in which people are going to rediscover themselves, their families, their homes, the simple pleasures of life, things that we have forgotten because we've been so busy going after things externally that we forgot the inner. This is a beautiful time on earth, though we are here also to pray for those who departed unexpectedly in such tragedy. But we can't forget that this calamity, as Kardec says, comes with a precise reason. Remember, we've created it. Now it is on us to receive the antidote. Selfishness and pride have been escalating on our planet due to the easiness of life. Now we come at a time in which we're being asked to revisit so many things. And we're not saying that the people who get infected are the ones who need to think. All of us, because it's already affecting us. It's already changing our lives. We don't need to contract, to be contaminated by this virus to feel how much it's already changing our lives. It's changing the pace. It's changing the format of our lives. So today, this chapter is going to be a perfect fit to this serenity that we need to achieve and the cleansing aspect in our inner lives. Are you ready? Yes? I see friends who have already joined us. And I'll say hi to you. Thank you, John De Rosa, for joining us at Kardec Radio. Thank you so much, Ellen Swift, for being here with us, forming this current of light. And hopefully this will be multiplied by the love of God to reach those who need the most in our planet. Teresa Castro, a big hug to you. Renata Bergfeld, a big hug to you, friend. And Carol Correia, thank you, Carol, for being with us. Thank you, Sol Souza. Thank you, Nora Brazil. Thank you, Fabi Leal as well. I don't see everybody who is here, but if you want, feel free to say hi, to make a comment, to ask a question, because here we are in this big classroom in two realms. Remember, this is happening in two realms. There are many spirits who live with us, who live with you, that are watching this, that are participating. So this is a moment, a very therapeutic moment for all of us. It's a moment to really revisit ourselves. Are you ready? Because our instructor Emmanuel, through Chico Xavier, brings to us a special page. He titles it Offended. He quotes Matthew chapter 18, verse 21. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Matthew 18:21. If someone has offended you, forgive them not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times. Christ's teaching clearly defines the potential advantages of the insulted or misunderstood individual. For this very reason, the Divine Master does not trace any obligations of any immediate nature to the offenders, since all those who hurt others immediately sculpt the stigmas of guilt in their own souls. And all guilt is always a factor of illness or disturbance. In any process of offense, the recipient is in a significant moment of spiritual life. It is the person who has the privilege to dissolve the darkness of thoughtless gestures, susceptible to spreading out of balance, who keeps the possibility of preserving the cohesion and harmony of the group in which they belong to, who keep the reign of their inner defense regarding those who enjoy their friendship and coexistence, still capable of inconvenient or negative reactions to injury. Those who can effectively help the offender through the kindness and understanding with which they accept the aggressions, and those who, in the end, manage to benefit protecting their own heart by immunizing it against the fall of retaliation or violence. However, the offended person will only obtain all this if they are willing to forget the evil and forgive the adversary, proceeding without complaint in the incessant construction of the good and in the support of harmony. Because every time we become reckless offenders, we become sick in our souls, in need of compassion and help, so that we do not fall in worse condition. The into endless discussions because mental intemperance and vanity always make good neighbors. Hello, Jailton. Hello, Sunshine. Hello, Daisy Gallen. Thank you for joining us at Kardec Radio. Thank you, Raquel Bakeshi, for joining us. So, friends, let's go back because this message comes so handy today. We're now revisiting our lives. What is priority? Of course, in English we say we take offense. It is up to us then to really define whether or not we're offended. Remember how many times Jesus was insulted? The question is, did he feel insulted? How many times we saw in his life people trying to put him down? How many people misunderstood him? There was a time in which Humberto de Campos describes, through Chico Xavier, a moment in which Jesus is passing by and he preached. And later, he healed so many people. The disciples were so excited about it. They were cheerful. They were making comments to Jesus saying, "Did you see, Master? How wonderful everything is. People are really believing in it. People embracing the teachings." And Jesus, as a wonderful master, tells them, "Let us be quiet and just listen to what they are saying." And they start hearing people saying, "Do you really believe he's the Messiah? I'm not so sure." The other one, "I think he's actually a womanizer because he talks to all the women." And you remember, back then, you're not supposed to talk to women in public unless you belong to the family. Then, "I think he's a drunkard because he's always gathering together with people and drinking." So they were shocked. The disciples were shocked at hearing that people saw Jesus in such a misunderstood way. The question is, did Jesus feel misunderstood? No. Did he feel hurt by the ingratitude of people? No. He is our guide and model, and he's teaching us to look at people who hurt others from a different angle. He's not saying, "Yes, be abused." No. We can't be abused. If people are abusing us, we need to do what Jesus did. Step aside and go away. He's not saying, "Yeah, be abused, allow people to abuse it." No. He's talking about the inner. He's talking about ourselves. Even if we have to divorce someone who doesn't respect us, the problem is what we're carrying inside of us. If we go away and still feel hurt, that's our problem, not the person's problem. Do you remember in the book Sex and Destiny by André Luiz through Chico Xavier, Mrs. Beatriz clearly was a good wife, a good mom. She died of cancer that life. People didn't understand why. Then at some point, we get to know that she is induced through a regression therapy in the spiritual realm. And they go to 150 years earlier, when she was living another life with the same husband who also cheated on her. And the hatred that she felt towards them, the women, the men, etc. She didn't heal. She hasn't healed. She hadn't healed at all. And in spite of that life, going through that experience of expunging that hatred, she still had a long way to really do it. Our problem is what we do with the scenarios of life. If people want to discriminate us, if people want to hurt us, put us down, that's their problem. Our problem is if we feel that way. If we feel that way, then very likely we're in an expiation mode. When we're not able to overcome it because of past guilt. So let's talk about this, okay? Let's go back here and talk about guilt. He says here, clearly, the Christ teachings defines the potential advantages of the person who is insulted and misunderstood. Blessed are the afflicted. Blessed are the afflicted. Hello, Peri Soares. So, he says, the Divine Master does not trace any obligations to the offenders. Why? Because the offenders will sculpt the guilt in their souls. This is so beautiful. If you go to the book Evolution in Two Worlds, chapter 19, part 2, André Luiz, through Chico, Xavier, and Valdo Vieira, discloses to us that whenever we make a grave mistake, we create a knot of vibratory disturbance in our spiritual body, in our perispirit. And it vibrates that disturbance, crystallizing it. And you may ask, what's going to happen then? We'll need to reincarnate to expunge it. We may be susceptible to illnesses because of that. So here we have why Jesus didn't get all too concerned about those who were offending, because naturally they define their destiny. The problem is, what we can do, we have an option when we are facing that challenge of the offense. We have options. Option 1, be offended, period. And he's saying here, if we don't forgive and forget, we may fall in worse condition. Look at Mrs. Beatrice. But if we decide to take another option, option 2, to forgive, what is going to happen? Now, this is the beauty of this message. That's why Jesus brought us the good news. We can almost hear the hymns of hope, joy, faith calling us. He says, in the process of offense, those who receive it are in a significant moment of their spiritual life. The person has the privilege to dissolve darkness, the darkness of thoughtless gestures. Avoid disseminating it. So we can put a stop. You know, there is a video that goes on in the internet about somebody who hurt somebody else, and then they hurt the others, and then somebody puts a stop at it. The offense mill stops. Somebody said, enough, I'm gonna forgive. In this case, it was a mom. The son comes in, he's thoughtless, and she forgives, educates in forgiveness. So here we have an opportunity today. Today, we can look at anything that we feel as an offense and say, well, I have a choice to put a stop at this meal of offense. I will do it. I won't perpetuate it. Plus, when he says that, he's talking about also previous lives. Because in previous lives, we have offended others. We have hurt other people. Now, by forgiving the offender today, we are also forgiving the offender of yesterday, our very selves. This person is the mirror image of myself in the past. Then he says here, he says to us that the offended or the recipient of offense keeps the possibility of preserving the cohesion and harmony of the group in which they belong. Because it's saying, let's say you are in a family, you have children. When a couple doesn't have children, it is one scenario. When they have children, it's another scenario. Completely different. The commitment escalates. That's why we need to think a million times before we have children. Because from that moment on, it changes it all. So we need to heal a lot before we get to the next step. But when we get there and things happen, we need to practice this forgiveness also for the collective good, the general good. You see how Jesus is revolutionary? Forgiveness is no longer a personal thing. It's a collective. It has a collective effect. Think of Nelson Mandela and how his forgiveness attitude perpetuates to date inspiration in so many ways. So we can, in the group we belong to, perpetuate the hatred or put a stop at it and create some unity, the bond in cohesion, harmony with one another. See how significant Emmanuel is saying that when we are facing an offense, we have this opportunity of breaking old conditionings at collective level. That's why when we send our kids to school, we don't want them to be hurt by anybody. Oh yeah, we feel hurt when they are hurt. Of course, that's good parenting. Because if we don't feel anything, that's a problem. But what we're going to do with it is completely different. Saying, are we going to incite them to avenge, to be bellicose? Or are we going to say, let's pray for this person, let's forgive them, and let us work trusting yourself that you're not less because somebody competed with you and displaced you, or because they said this, that, and the other. It's hard because it's new to us. We may feel that we are losing something by doing so. We may feel weak, but it's not. I remember at kindergarten, Virginia had experiences, and once I stepped into the classroom to pick her up, and I saw this girl shouting at her, and she didn't do anything. And then she came to me, and I said, what happened? Well, she wanted to play with my dolls, but I said I had to go home, and she didn't understand. And I said, I'm sorry. And she didn't understand. I said, tell your teacher. She told the teacher, and the teacher said, well, Virginia, congratulations, because you're so composed. Don't worry about it. And I said, don't worry about it. Let's pray. Another day, another mother who got to know of the incident said, oh, you have to teach your daughter to be tougher. She can't allow somebody to scream in her face and impose themselves. And I said, am I going to explain to that person what I think? I don't think they're open. They just want to lecture. I said, okay. But time tells us what is right and what is wrong. Did I feel like she lost anything by not fighting and say, you're bad, you want my dolls? No, she kept her cool, and she was even apologetic for not allowing somebody to abuse. But in this case, she didn't allow herself to be abused either, but in a gentle way. Why am I sharing this with you? Because for us parents, it's hard. But our children need to go through those experiences to grow. And we need to support them in forgiveness. And even allow them to talk about it and say, did you see you didn't lose anything? Did you see how everything was well? You were doing your best. But let's pray, because that friend doesn't understand things as you do. So let's be helpful at praying. So this is food for thought for us, how we can learn it from childhood, okay? Hello, Gabriel Inácio. Thank you so much for being with us, for joining this current of knowledge and love. Hello, Renata Molina. Thank you. Yes, Renata. The name of the app is, and I'll type it in, okay? It's I Am. That's all it is. I Am. The app for affirmations. It is beautiful. Thank you so much for asking it. Okay, Renata? Okay, back to the single opportunity of redefining our lives when we are receiving an offense, whether we want to receive it or not. He says, the recipient can effectively help the offender. How so? Through kindness and understanding, with which they accept the aggressions. So people may look at us and say, why are you always using sunglasses? And you may look at the person, and I may look at the person saying, you know, okay, I'll take it off. Is that okay? I mean, there's things you don't explain because it's your choice. And if people don't get it, you don't need to explain. That's something that is very important in emotional intelligence. People may ask you questions, like they did ask Jesus. But we can choose to answer to those questions or not, or simply be like Jesus, quiet. People are daring, like they did with Jesus. They would come and say, I want to be your disciple, and this and that and the other. He would keep looking at people, not saying anything. And people would go away thinking, yeah, he's not master of anything, because he was not forceful. So you see, we have options. That's why Jesus is our guide and model. We need to keep looking at him and see, whoa, that's an option I didn't contemplate, being quiet, but in kindness inside. He was not quiet to be superior, but to say, there is no bridge at this moment because we're in different dimensions, psychologically speaking, spiritually speaking. So let it be. When he talked to Pontius Pilate, did he lecture Pontius Pilate? No. Pontius Pilate was not interested in anything Jesus said at the time. So he simply answered to his question and stayed there. He didn't try to prove himself, bragging about himself, to prove a point and say, do you see, making a case. No. That's why this chapter ends talking about vanity and mental intemperance. Because the way people are nowadays, very aggressive. And people full of themselves. We can't go there anymore. Let it be. And then they say, the offended is someone who in the end manages to benefit, protecting their own heart by immunizing it against the fall of retaliation and violence. Aha, that's the secret. Somebody hurt us, and then we avenge. We retaliate. We don't go there, because when we go there, we're dwelling. Talking about dwelling, don't dwell with the coronavirus. Huh? Don't be angry with the coronavirus, because the coronavirus is helping us. Believe me, it's helping us cleanse the earth. You see, St. Patrick's Day is coming. Everything is canceled after 258 years of parade. Thank you, coronavirus. Not about St. Patrick, because St. Patrick is something beyond the drinking, but people use and abuse of such opportunity to go drunk, do crazy things. So it's cleansing. It's saying, let's stop everything and see what remains. Thank you, coronavirus, because it's helping us redefine who we need to be. And talking about dwelling, here we have in the chapter, and give me just a second, I'll give you the very chapter here. It talks about love your enemies, chapter 12 of the Gospel according to Spiritism by Kardec. In the Spirit Teachings, we have items 11 to 16. Can you believe it? 11 to 16, and I'm opening here because we're studying together. And it says here, when we are dwelling, 239, Mamma mia, here it is. Wow. He says, several spirits give messages about it, and they say, the men of the world, the happy men, who because of an offensive word or a slight matter throws away the life that has come to him from God, or who throws away the life of his fellow men, a life that belongs to God alone, is 100 times guiltier than the wretch who, compelled by greed or sometimes by necessity, goes into someone's home to steal what he covets and kills those who stand in his way. Believe it or not, I'm just teasing you. Go read it. Because dwelling, as they say here in several, is barbaric. And nowadays, as our dear André Luiz describes in the book, In the Realms of Mediumship, there's a chapter, he talks about mental battles. We may not physically dwell somebody anymore, but we are in this mental battle with somebody. We wake up thinking of that person. We go to sleep thinking of that person. And we're constantly thinking about what they do, how they do it, and what we do, and how we come across. And that's mental battle. That's dwelling. And it hurts us, and it hurts others. So what can we do? Look at Livia. Livia. If you think Jesus is a bar too high, think of Livia. 2,000 years ago. Have you read it? Have you listened to this? Because she is a good coach for it. Did she took offense because she was slandered? No. Did she unfocused? No. She kept herself focused. Did she feel sad? Sometimes she did. But for 25 years, being mistreated by her husband. But remember, let me put a parenthesis here. She was mistreated by a husband who was sick in his soul. Somebody slandered his wife, and because of his chauvinistic way of being, his obsession, he absorbed it. At the time, women couldn't quit marriages like that easily. Nowadays, it's much easier. You don't need, but she had children. She needed to stay close. So she renounced so many things to stay there. Did she hate the husband? No. Did she cultivate anger? Depression? No. What did she do? She kept herself faithful to the teachings she embraced. Though her husband didn't believe in Jesus, she kept herself faithful to the Christ-conscious teachings. At a time when being a Christ follower was a big deal. I think it's still a big deal, but we have we have undermined the invitation to be Christ followers. We're taking it too lightly. But back then, those who really embraced it, like her, they took it seriously. And she started doing charitable works at a time when being charitable was not at all being, was not trendy. It wasn't trendy. It wasn't beautiful. It was weird. And she was friends to the slaves. She treated like equals. She kept herself instructed of the teachings of the Christ, and she looked at her husband with compassion. But she didn't give her face to be beaten up by the husband. She kept herself aside. So, here he says, if the offended person really forgives and forgets the evil and forgives the person, he says, forgets what they've done wrong and forgives the person, they will proceed without complaint. They will not complain, and they will keep building the good and supporting the harmony. Again and again, we're being asked to do the good. Yes, forgive. Forget what they've done. Forgive the person. The person is sick, it's clear. It's clear. The person who offends is sick, is not well. We need to help and be compassionate. And if we don't do it, we'll fall in worse condition. In families, it's very hard. Between husband and wife, partners in general, children and parents, relatives in general. But those who really step forward and work on it, they will liberate themselves. I think tonight our dear instructor Emmanuel is asking us to do an exercise. Okay? So let us mark it down. I have my pen to mark it down, because sometimes we wake up and there's so much going on we forget. But let us write it down. What we're gonna do. Since the coronavirus is coming to help us cleanse the earth, let's cleanse the heart. In the next 24 hours, you and I are being invited by the loving and kind spirit instructors to cleanse our hearts, to say a prayer to those whom we feel became offenders in our lives, and let us forgive them, forget what they've done, and do our good, saying a prayer to them, praying for them, and visualizing them. So that's step number 1. Pray for the offenders of the present and the past. And visualize a moment that will happen in the future. That's a sure thing according to the laws of God. A moment in which in the future that person will be balanced and will be reunited in whatever form, will be reunited in harmony, will be harmonized. Okay? In whatever way you feel it. I won't say more words because you build it with your own vibrations. So visualize the moment past the reconciliation when we are already reconciled. Okay? You like it? Right? Past the reconciliation? Yes. Leave it, right, Carol? Broke the protocol to meet Master Jesus in person. That was the huge moment. You're right. Visualize past the moment of reconciliation when we are already harmonized. How about if we finalize this moment by praying together? So yes, we need prayers. We're going to visualize Mother Mary with us. She's taking care of everyone together with Jesus and many others on earth. Let us pray. Pray for those who are desperate. Pray for those who are feeling lonely. Pray for those who are sick. Shall we, friends? Let us pray. Thank you, Carol, for summarizing our exercise, the cleansing of the heart. Let us join in prayer. Dear Master Jesus and Mother Mary, we feel the invitation of cleansing of our hearts. And we thank you for your mercy and kindness in time and again in these 2,000 years, inviting us to forgive always. In our stubbornness, in our ego, we resisted it. But this has been so fruitless. Right now, we would like to share encouragement, hope, faith, healing vibrations that may be multiplied by your generosity with God to envelop everyone on earth in healing, in kindness, the healing within. May people feel how much it is important to raise their thoughts to God and surrender themselves to Him. In our current of vibrations, we visualize with you the light of healing enveloping our beloved planet Earth and all forms of life in both realms, the incarnate and the discarnate. And we breathe in this healing, and we hope to be stronger in our commitment to be a helping hand in healthy vibrations during the day and during the night, supporting you in this beautiful moment of the remodeling of the vibrations of the earth. Certain of your guidance, feeling your protection, we thank you for the permission of being here together tonight, and so be it. La da da, la da, la da 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 da. Yes, friends, this is living in serenity, cleansing the hearts to live lighter. Let us hope that in the next 24 hours we're going to be more harmonized and more helpful to the whole planet by securing our own vibrations. For now, this is it here in Living in Serenity at Kardec Radio, always nourishing our souls, friends. And we hope to be back with you tomorrow, God willing, here in Living in Serenity. Thank you, friends.